Good morning. It is Monday, September 28th, 2020. You can now relax and be informed. Here is your daily bite of news. A new law signed by California Governor Gavin Newson on Saturday requires the state to house transgender inmates in prisons based on their gender identity. Advocates have argued that it is dangerous to house transgender women in male facilities based on their biological sex. Now, officers must ask inmates privately during the intake process if they identify as transgender, non-binary, or intersex. Inmates can then request a placement in either a male or female facility. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation cannot deny requests solely on an inmate's anatomy or sexual orientation. Requests can be denied because of management or security concerns, and the inmate has the opportunity to object and ask for a reassess for concerns of health or safety. The law also requires officers to address transgender inmates based on their choice pronoun. Hundreds of fossilized footprints dating back 120,000 years have been discovered in Saudi Arabia and could point to the earliest evidence of human movement in the region. At Alathan Lake in the Nefu Desert, they have also identified animal footprints of horses, camels, and elephants, one elephant having been extinct 400,000 years ago. The footprints of the humans are believed to be those of homo-sapiens and not Neanderthals. Saudi Arabia has signed 3 agreements with the United Nations aid agencies to provide $204 million in funding for the aid crisis in Yemen. The amount is pledged to the Yemen Humanitarian Response Plan 2020. Funding cuts to humanitarian aids in Yemen by the U.S., UAE, and SA in the past have led to the country of Yemen on the brink of famine. Agencies cite concerns on the appropriation of funds, worried it will end up in the hands of the Houthi, Iran-backed rebels in the area. In Yemen, 80% of the population is dependent on aid, and 14 million people could die without aid support. The U.S. donated $411 million in aid this year, which is half of the usual amount, but the U.S. still remains Yemen's largest donor. The U.S. ultimately profited from conflicts in the region between Saudi Arabian forces and the Houthi Iran rebels in the north of Yemen by sale of U.S. bombs and armaments in the past. Due to the COVID-19 virus, the United Nations estimates that 24 million children will drop out of schools in the developing world and be sucked back into child labor work. This could potentially roll back years of progress and social mobility and public health for children. Families are desperate for money to survive and eat, so children are an easy source of cheap labor. When schools shut down in developing countries, there is no online learning options for them. Severe hunger is stalking children in Afghanistan and Sudan. Forced marriages for girls are rising in Africa and Asia, and child trafficking will grow as well as child sex work. In India, teacher Nahida Ismail says the whole ecosystem around kids is breaking down. Officials open bars and restaurants, but keep schools and government-run health hospitals for children closed, forcing many to give up, since after dropping out and getting work, it is difficult for families to give up the added income to send children back to school. Leaders of countries talk of reopening economies, but do not discuss the opening of schools. According to a report released by the New York Times, copies obtained of President Trump's federal income taxes show he paid none whatsoever in 10 out of 15 years since the year 2000 because he reported losing significantly more than he made. In the year he won the White House, President Trump allegedly paid only $750 in federal income taxes. Trump had been using the $427.4 million he was paid for The Apprentice to fund other businesses and was putting more cash into his business than he was taking out. The report detailed by the New York Times paints a picture of a businessman who was struggling to keep his businesses afloat and was reporting millions in losses to the IRS, even as he was boasting of his financial success while campaigning. The newspaper also reports that in Trump's first 2 years in office, he collected $73 million in revenue overseas, some of it licensing deals from India and Turkey. The Trump Organization lawyer is calling the report false information and has requested to look at the New York Times documents obtained. In an opposing view, an article in the National Review about the New York Times article points out that Trump was legally taking advantage of loopholes in the IRS tax code that a savvy operator could exploit. A business loss can be used as a coupon that can be redeemed against a gain in another business, with business owners requesting full refunds of taxes prior to 4 years, a measure signed by Obama as part of the Great Recession recovery effort. This loophole is how Trump was able to get $73 million from the IRS in federal and state funds. Trump may have to pay that money back depending on the outcome of an IRS audit and investigation by the Joint Committee on Taxation. Well, that's all for today's news. If you'd like to read more on these topics, please see our sources in the description below. Subscribe to receive a daily news update. Thank you for listening. Be relaxed, be informed, be connected.